Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's XPM webinar on Atlassian Enterprise Governance. I'm in a little bit of an unusual recording studio this morning. We are in St. Louis and we got hit with a winter storm with several inches of snow. So everybody's hunkered down in their houses today. So I'm going to be doing this webinar from my house. And so I hope you can enjoy the warm fireplace like I am. And I do apologize in advance if we have any technical issues because we are doing this remotely rather than in our nice controlled studio. But every week, XPM does a webinar on various topics that are in the Atlassian ecosystem. Today's topic is on Atlassian governance, but we do webinars uh, on portfolio management, on service management, on business team, utilizing Atlassian tools for business teams, and Confluence and many other webinars as well. So if this is something that's of value to you, you can find it on our website and you can tune in every Thursday at 11 o'clock Central. So let's jump in and get started. My name is Steve Terrelmus. I am the practice lead for XPM. I always like to tell people right in the beginning of having a conversation with them, the difference between XPM and Atlassian. So a lot of times people want help or want to learn something about Atlassian and they run into a company like XPM or some company other than Atlassian. The reason why that is in the 20 years that Atlassian has been around, they have worked very closely with partners and they have varying levels of partners for different reasons. XPM is a platinum solutions partner. So we are a full service partner for licensing, training, consulting, and many other things. But most of the time when customers work with Atlassian products, they will work through a partner. Partners in Atlassian have a very symbiotic relationship and it's worked out very well for many years. And so many times when you're involved with an Atlassian activity like a webinar or a consulting engagement, you'll be working directly with a partner like XPM. So that's who we are. I'll give you a little bit more information about XPM later on in the webinar. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this idea of Atlassian enterprise governance. Now, this is a mouthful. And so I do like to kind of start off in the beginning of the webinar and explain to folks kind of where we're going. So Atlassian governance can mean a lot of different things. Really what it is, though, is it's an opportunity to make sure that your company is just scaling in its most efficiently and healthy way that it can. But it's also an opportunity to utilize the fantastic tools that we have with Atlassian software to help to facilitate that scale. So we're going to start at a really high 10,000 foot level and talk about what governance is. And then we're going to drill all the way down to the ground level, where we are going to demonstrate some of the Atlassian tools and how you can use the Atlassian tools to facilitate really good governance. But to give you a teaser, just to kind of keep you on the hook for the rest of the webinar, I'm going to show you as a starter some of those tools that we have right now. And then I'll get into more details with them later on at the end of the webinar. And then at the very end, we'll have a few minutes open for question and answer if you have any specific questions. So how can you use Atlassian tools for governance? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. We actually like to say Atlassian tools are broken up into Jira and Confluence as well as many other tools. But when you're thinking about Jira, you're thinking about how you get things done. And so in Jira, you have things like dashboards that can help track different governance requests that are coming in, different things that are being built specific to governance, activities around governance, like governing meetings and governing bodies, and even nomination of governing personnel and writing of governing policy. All of these are things that have to be done. And so you can utilize the Jira tool to build out those tasks and track those tasks in projects or in dashboards. And so this is an example of our governance demo dashboard. So that's one thing you can do with Atlassian tools. The other thing, of course, is in Confluence, which is our content manager, where we actually pull together content. You can have a Confluence space around governance. And that space can be used to let everyone know and understand what is happening in your organization around governance, whether you only have a 50 or 100 users in Atlassian tools, or you have 50,000 as one of our customers has. You can always have a central area on a Confluence space where everyone in the company can go and see what does governance mean for us? And how do I participate in governing activities if I need something or want to participate? So that's what we're going to be going through. That's what I kind of call the ground level. That's where people are operating on a day-to-day basis. But before we get there, let's go back up to the top and talk more strategically around what this idea of governance is all about. This first slide I like to show is a very high level theoretical concept of governance. Think of governance as a rocket ship in a control tower. All of you have companies, and those companies are designed to do something, to create revenue, to solve problems, to help people, and of course, to grow. That's kind of like a rocket ship. You're achieving a destiny and you're trying to accomplish something, and sometimes you're moving, like rocket ships do, very fast. And so it is important to have a control tower that can not necessarily limit the rocket, but make sure that it is facilitating the rocket in the best way possible and also protecting the rocket from things to make sure that it is going to achieve what it wants to achieve. The control tower analogy with the rocket will help our companies to do things like align strategies, or maybe improve our processes, or provide efficiency across the organization. These are some high-level concepts and ideas that we are targeting and trying to accomplish with our concept of governance. So what exactly is the control tower going to do, and what is our goals of our governance? Well, I created a little acronym here to kind of help us remember it. And the acronym is, conveniently enough, the word rocket, right? So we're going to start with R. R stands for representation. When we build a governance platform, we want to make sure that the people that are involved in the governance activities and motivating the governance activities are really grassroots. We don't want a heavy-handed top-down governance structure. We want to have motivation from the people that are actually using the tools on the ground level. So representation is important. Openness, especially if you have a very large company, having openness is very important so people understand what other people are thinking and doing around governance. Some of the tools that I already showed you, like Confluence, really help out a lot with providing openness so people know what's going on. Coordination. Coordination means that you're going to need to work with people, talk to people, engage with people. And so again, depending on the size of your organization, that coordination may be a simple governing body of a handful of people, or it may be a very large hub and spoke governing structure that you put together. We're going to talk a little bit later in this webinar around the elements of the governing structure, who some of the governing bodies might be, or different roles that might work well for your governing structure. Knowledge. So knowledge is going to be important for anything in a governing body. We are going to be getting questions from our users about what is the best standard for certain types of workflows. Should we buy a particular add-on? As you may know, in the Atlassian ecosystem, if you buy an add-on, you pay for that add-on for all of the users of your base product. So if you have 2,000 users in Jira and one team wants an add-on, you're going to be paying for that add-on for all 2,000 users. So having a good knowledge base within your governing body about the impact of that add-on to all 2,000 users, and perhaps other activities that have happened around the governing body in the past, is going to be crucial to make sure that you are actually being efficient and putting things together and moving forward in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone. The next letter in our acronym is expertise. Expertise is kind of like wisdom, right? The old adage of wisdom or knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. So that's kind of the difference between knowledge and expertise. Knowledge is an understanding of the tools. Expertise is an understanding of how those tools apply to your organization, to your rocket. And then finally, teamwork. We always want to operate in teamwork. In fact, Atlassian is actually promotes this very directly in their products. Their stock ticker, as their publicly traded company, is actually TEAM, T-E-A-M, because they want to build up companies in the best way they can through team-based solution tools. And so when we build a governing body, we also want to build that from the perspective of teamwork as well. So representation, openness, coordination, knowledge, expertise, and teamwork spell out our ROCKET acronym, and that is the goal of our framework in our control tower for promoting good governance. Okay, enough of the theoretical hoo-ha. Let me step down a little bit closer to reality. So if we're going to have a governance structure, we want to establish a vision. Again, this may be a structure that people are looking to across the organization. So we want to build a vision that is going to be representative of the entire organization and the purposes of governance, again, from the perspective of grassroots. So a vision might be something like this. Now, you should come up with your own vision after thinking about this, but you're welcome to borrow this if you'd like to. Ensuring an ongoing balance between enterprise goals and enterprise growth via flexible controls managed directly by the employees who best understand the purpose and value of Atlassian products across the organization. Notice the two words I highlighted there in red, balance and employees. Those promote the ideas that we talked about in the previous slide, especially the grassroots governance that we're going to get by having the management of governance being driven primarily through employees. Now, what would be the broader purpose that we want to perpetrate across our organization around governance? Well, again, this is something you want to think about, come up with on your own, but here's an idea. Maybe the governing body will support the creation, decision, discussion, and implementation of Atlassian products, apps, components, and configuration. Basically, we are building a governing body around Atlassian tools. Now, some of the concepts I talk about today, you may expand to other tools. I'm sure you have other tools in your organization like Microsoft or Google. And these same theoretical ideas apply to those as well. In fact, you can even use the Atlassian framework of Jira and Confluence to help organize and manage governance around other tools also. But specifically for this purpose, we want to focus on supporting, and again, that's the word I highlighted in red there, because we want the governing body to primarily be a supporting body. Again, we're a control tower for the rocket. We're not the rocket, right? So it's the support for things, activities that are going to be happening among Atlassian products, like creation, discussion, decisions, all those things. And it's not just going to be the base products like Jira and Confluence. It's going to be all of the apps. It's going to be the components. It may even be things like third-party products that we're tying into Atlassian tools, and also how we can structure and configure that tool. For example, what things in our Jira instance should be standardized versus which things can be customized for a specific team. All of those are going to fall into the parameter of the governance purpose, why we are here. Okay, so let's take it down a little bit closer to the ground level now, and let's talk about some high-level goals and components of our governing process. This diagram that I have here is kind of a twofold diagram. It starts off with 4 main goals of governance in the middle, and then it's surrounded by a series of bubbles that represent either Atlassian products or governing activities that'll be happening to support those 4 main goals. Let's take a look at the goals first. Scalable growth. We're in an economic environment right now where a lot of our companies are scaling very fast. It seems as though we're having, obviously, supply chain issues. There's a high demand on any supply or resource that you have, and we're seeing some significant scalable growth across our ecosystems, right? That is going to be reflected very quickly in your Atlassian products. Scalable growth in your company is going to mean more users in Atlassian products, more projects in Jira, more needs for content and documentation in Confluence, and expansion across all of your Atlassian products and apps and other things. So scalable growth is going to be a goal of governance. We want healthy, scalable growth. Number 2, visible control. Now I like the term visible control because what it means is that we are instituting some measure of sanity into our process, but we are not hiding that at all. We're not hiding that measure. We're exposing it to everyone. And we're exposing it for 2 reasons. One, for knowledge, but also in the hopes that people will be excited and engaged with it and actually want to participate in the governance process as well. And then user ownership. In other words, if we do a good job with visible control, we will probably have people excited and interested in it, and they will want to get involved. And that will lead us to user ownership, which is the ideal framework for a governing situation. We want grassroots momentum around governing activity and decisions. So user ownership is one of our key goals as well. And then finally, knowledge sharing. It's been long known in organizations that the companies that are good at sharing knowledge are the ones that get far ahead of their competitors. And so we want our governing process and structure to represent that as well. Knowledge sharing is going to be represented by how we are displaying our information in content. Utilizing the Confluence space that's open to everybody is going to be a tremendous benefit as well. Also, making sure that the governing activities are being managed within Jira, where everybody can not only see, but also contribute to those activities as they go through. So scalable growth, visible control, user ownership, and knowledge sharing. Those goals are going to be enacted across all of the bubbles around this diagram. What are some of these bubbles? Well, some of them are going to be your products, like the governance around Confluence, the governance around Jira, the governance around your source control tools, the governance around your portfolio management tools, like advanced roadmaps or Jira Align or other products that you use for BI and intelligence and working through portfolio management. Those are going to be the platforms that we're going to see and the structures that we are going to see these four goals enacted out on. The areas that are going to facilitate those are the bubbles along the bottom, like Atlassian governance policies. What are the policies that we have around governance? The Atlassian best practices. What have we learned? What's that experience brought to light that indicates to us on a regular basis we should be doing this as a standardization, right? Governing bodies. Who are the people that are responsible for ensuring that the governance is healthy, that it's being promoted well, that all the goals in the middle are being achieved, and what representation should those people be coming from? Atlassian governance framework tools. So what are the actual framework that we're using to successfully implement our governance structure? I'm going to, again, when we get to the ground level, show you some more details around using Jira and Confluence as an excellent framework for that. And then finally, Atlassian how-to articles. This is a really great area. We want, another part of grassroots governance is we want people that have experience doing things to incorporate into their process the way of building artifacts around what they did and learned, so that we have a universal collection of how-to articles. Especially if you have a very large organization, it's going to be inevitable that you'll have several people spread across that organization that all have the same kind of question, maybe on a new product or a new add-on. And if one of them has already led the curve on that and has put together some sort of how-to article around it, it's going to save an immeasurable amount of time for the other people as well. Okay, so those are our governance goals, and also some of the components that will help either structure those goals or facilitate those goals. All right, continuing down to the ground level, let's talk about what I like to call the governance pillars. These are the three major avenues of governance. First is governance structure. This is going to be your governing bodies, the people that are managing governance, the people that understand governance, the people that are responsible for building out the governance framework, promoting good governance goals, etc. Next, we're going to have the governance framework. This is where your governance lives. And again, as I've mentioned several times already, we want this to be open. We want everybody to be able to see this. And then finally, the governance policies. What decisions have we made around governance? You'll notice that these three pillars actually are very interactive. The governing structure is going to be doing activities and making decisions represented within the governing framework. The governing policies are going to be drafted via the action framework that we put in the governance framework. The governing policies are going to be decided by the governing structure, right? These three pillars are very much working together constantly on a day-to-day basis. And if we do this successfully, what's really magical about this is that the people that have to be involved in preserving and managing this do not need to be stuck with a lot of onerous activities like regularly scheduled recurring meetings, right? If we use the governance framework properly, the governing bodies within the governing structure can build governing policies without feeling like they need to have recurring meetings. And so they don't have this huge obligation on their calendar that's taking away from their day-to-day activities. Again, we want this to be a control tower. We don't want this to take away from the velocity of the rocket. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is take you down to the ground level and show you exactly how this could work in a framework within an Atlassian tool. But before I do that, I do want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit more about Expium, who we are, how you can learn more about us, and the wide variety of valuable information that we have available for you for free. So Expium, again, is a Platinum Solutions partner. There are only about 20 Platinum Solution partners in the United States, in order to be a Platinum Solutions partner, you need to have a certain number of people certified with Atlassian products, and you need to have achieved a certain amount of acumen and experience and licenses with certain customers. In other words, you have to have been around the block a few times. Let's just put it that way, right? Expium is somewhat unique in that 100% of our consulting body is fully certified. And so if you are talking with an Atlassian person like myself, or in any of our classes, or in any of our consulting engagements, or in any of our webinars, you will be working with somebody who's fully certified, and we can guarantee that because that is one of our initial requirements with every employee that comes to Expium. Here are some of the things that we do as a company. We do training. Our benchmark training, our course is our Jira Bootcamp class. It is a 3-day hands-on workshop-based class. All of our training is workshop-based. If you come to one of our classes, a unique element of our classes is we don't do PowerPoint slides. We get you as the student in the tool on your computer, on your laptop, and you are a user and an admin of the tool that we are training on. Throughout the training class, there'll be multiple workshops. By the time you leave, you will have built a significant number of things in the tool that then you can take back to your company. Consulting. So we do all kinds of consulting on all Atlassian tools. And then licensing as well. As a Platinum Solutions provider, we can not only license for you, but we can license for you at a rate that is always going to be comparable, competitive to any other rate you will get, including buying directly from Atlassian. Also, we will be able to walk your license journey with you, help you with budgetary estimates, help you answer questions about which add-on you should purchase, help you make decisions about when it's time to move from cloud to from server to cloud, or other things around licensing. And we do all of that free of charge for licensing. And then finally, custom development. We do all kinds of automation in the tools. We do custom add-ons. We've built custom portal frameworks on top of the Atlassian tools. Expium grew out of another company called Oasis Digital, which is a full stack software development company. So we have a deep technical understanding of the Atlassian tools and how software works. So we can pretty much solve any problem that you have. Of course, if you want to get a hold of us on any of these things, you can reach out to us. I'll be sharing my email address with you later on in the class. I do want to do 2 more things really quick before I move off of who we are. And that is to share with you our website and our YouTube page. What's really interesting in the Atlassian ecosystem is I get calls all the time from people, and they ask me, can you help me with this or that? And the first question I ask them is, how'd you find out about us? And almost without exception now, people are finding us out there in the marketing area, either with our website or a YouTube page. And I think a lot of times the reason why that's happening is Atlassian is advertising different things. People find out about it, think it's a great idea. They do a search and they find us out there. So here's our website page. You can go to our website. It's just expium.com. We have a blog with a lot of articles in there, lessons learned and other activities that we've done with case studies with clients. Here are our services that we are involved in. Also, events. This is a great thing to take a look at. Like I said, every week we have a webinar. This is where you can go to register for those webinars. You'll also see some of our training classes in here, like Jira Bootcamp, Confluence Bootcamp, and this is where you can go to register for those as well. So that's our website. YouTube, just go to YouTube and type in Expium, and you'll find our Expium channel. We have, I don't know how many videos out there right now. They range from deep dive videos that are an hour or 2 long around key subject matter to quick 5-minute videos. A while back, we did a fun little video series called Expium's Expedited Explanations. They're 5-minute flash videos on how to solve things. We have some great playlists out there that are worth looking at. And I do like to point this out specifically when I do this governance webinar, and that is our Expium Governance Series playlist. So if anything I'm talking to you about today actually triggers further curiosity, I would highly recommend you go to our YouTube site, go to our playlists, and go to our Expium Governance Series playlist. These videos came from a series of forums that Expium did around the country for a period of about 2 years that we did in conjunction with Atlassian staff and with Google staff. Our partner company, Oasis Digital, is a partner with Google as well, just like Expium is a partner with Atlassian. So there's going to be presentations here from Atlassian, from Google, from Expium, covering a lot of different things around enterprise governance. So check that out. Some really rich information there and value. But our website and our YouTube page is a great place to find out more information about us. Oftentimes when people watch our video, they like what we say, they like how we do things, and that's how we wind up getting customers. So it's working out really well. Good value out there. Go check it out. Okay, the next thing I just want to do is jump down into the ground level and start talking about Atlassian governance at the ground level. So we talked a lot of the high theoretical stuff, the rocket ship, the governing bodies, all this great goals around governance. Let's talk about how we can actually implement this in a functional tool that will help us achieve those goals. So I'm going to jump over into our demo instance of Jira and Confluence, and I'm just going to start showing you guys a few things. The first thing I want to point out is we're in Jira right now. And this may be obvious to you, but I do like to point out your Atlassian governance project can live right in Jira with all of your other projects. This makes it highly collaborative. So if you're in the Atlassian ecosystem for any period of time, you'll know that Atlassian tools are highly collaborative. In other words, if you have an enterprise service management desk, once a ticket gets triaged by tier 1, it can be automated down to tier 2 into a Jira software project, right? It's a collaborative platform with multiple projects that are interchangeable. Same thing is true with governance. If you have a governance request that's coming in and that needs to trigger something into other projects within Atlassian, you can automate that into other projects and you can link those together. And so there's lots of collaboration you can do. All right, going right into the governance project, it's going to be just like any other project in Jira. You're going to have a series of issues that are going to be there, and you're going to have a queue that's going to be identifying the issues that have come in. What are some of the issues that we can do in a Jira project to help facilitate the goals of governance? Let's take a quick look at this project and look a little bit at some of the framework behind this project with some of the things that we can do. So some of the ideas, and again, this is just something we've put together as an example. You all can do whatever you want, but let's take a look at some of the things. Of course, in Jira, we always ask 3 questions. What are we trying to do? How are we trying to accomplish it? And what data do we need to complete that or report on it later? In this case, the question, what do we want to do, is going to be what governing actions need to be captured in Jira and openly visible across the organization. So some of the examples might be a policy workflow. This might be a workflow around building a policy. So you might have an open status and a progress status and then in done, and then maybe there's a review and then it needs to be reopened to go back. So this is a policy workflow. Another workflow might be something like a user product request workflow. So this is a great example that I like to talk about, especially in putting together good governance, right? Let's assume you've got 2,000 users, many teams in your organization. A particular person has found a new app that's out there in the marketplace. It's a fabulous app and they want to implement it for their team. But as you know, you're going to have to pay for all 2,000 users in order to do that. So the best thing that can happen here is to introduce that immediately into the governance process. The user who is interested in this add-on can then create a ticket, because we're going to open up the ability to create tickets in the governance Jira project for everybody because we want it to be open. So he can go and create that ticket for the possibility of purchasing this app. The first thing he's going to do is research it. He needs to dig into it, research it, maybe build some articles around it so that people can understand how to use it. The next thing maybe he'll do is gather some interest, right? He is one person in one team across the 2,000 user instance, and we certainly don't want this request coming right to the governing body just because one person wants it. So maybe that person should go and do some research with his team, right? Gather some interest. Hey guys, I found this new app. This is what I've learned about it. This is what it can do. Are you interested in using it? Then maybe those team members can go and talk to other teams, right? At some point, it actually gets enough mass that it's worth talking to at the governing body and purchasing for 2,000 users. You could even use something like voting in the Jira ticket. Every Jira ticket has a default field for voting, where users, once they've reviewed the app, can go and vote for the app. And now the governing body can see how many votes this particular Jira ticket has, and they can organize their meetings around the Jira tickets that have the most votes. So maybe after this particular ticket gets 200 or 300 votes, it makes it into the governing body in which it's presented. And then maybe the person that originally came up with the idea or his entire team presents it to the governing body. Now, from here, a number of things might happen. It might be canceled, in which case it goes to closed. But keep in mind, this is a very important step, because even though it's been closed, that record is out there. So if another person in another team on the other side of the organization has the same idea, he can already come in here and take a look at the previous ticket and everything that was learned about that ticket because it's just sitting there in the archive. It might go on hold. In other words, yes, this looks like a good idea, but we're not ready for it. And then maybe it goes back to gathering more information. Hey, this is great. Go do some more research on it and then come back to us. Eventually, though, the governing body may decide to purchase this. If they purchase it, it then can go through a purchasing workflow, which might go through your purchasing department, which may be a completely separate workflow, right? After it's been purchased, then it gets configured. Once it gets configured, it then winds up going into a process where we want to capture the information around it so we can disseminate it and maximize the value of the use. At that point, we may send it to a documentation status where maybe the original person who wanted it writes out the how-to articles and documents and disseminates it across the 100 teams that are in the organization. And at which point it can then be closed. But now, because we've done a healthy governance process with this, we haven't bought an app before we should. We haven't put together an app that nobody knows about except for one team. And we are maximizing the value of the product that we purchased. So this is a really great workflow that I really like showing off when it comes to governing processes and governing bodies. Okay, there are other workflows. We don't have to get into all of them, but things like a nomination workflow, right? If you have a governing body and somebody has to step down, maybe there is a nomination issue that should be created in Jira, where different people can throw their hat into the ring. Again, you got a little voter thing on the Jira ticket as well. So people can even vote for the person right there on the Jira ticket, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of other things. You can even do a violation or a variance workflow. Something happens contrary to a governing policy, and maybe that creates the need to begin a new Jira ticket where we can view, should we create a variance to this policy? Or what should we do, or how should we manage this situation? So those are all workflows that can be used and put together to manage the activities. And as these issues get created, they'll all be logged into the system in the Jira project. They'll all be visible for everybody to see. People can act on them, people can vote on them, people can discuss them in the comments section of the ticket. And so it's all open visible. And that will also help facilitate the governing bodies so that they don't have to have a lot of emails, have a lot of meetings and things like that. I also want to show you real quick the dashboard. Once you have some active issues and tickets in your Jira governance project, you can then build a governance dashboard, and you can view this dashboard. So here's a couple of ideas of gadgets you can put on the dashboard. So first of all, a pie chart over here, giving you an idea of maybe the different issue types that exist out there. We have a nomination, policy change, system request, annual policy, and the percentage of those issue types that are currently existing in the Jira project. Here's one that actually does a filter request for your issues that are out there. This is a breakdown, two-dimensional filter statistic for the issue type across perhaps the assignee or maybe the reporter, or if you want to identify in your Jira governance ticket the team that created it, like which team that's using Jira created this particular issue, you could track that as well. You've got an issue statistic gadget over here that's tracking them all and their percentage completion. You also have an activity stream. You guys are probably familiar with dashboards, so you know that there's quite a few gadgets out there that you can use to create this one snapshot environment of how to manage things that are happening, actions that are happening in governance. So that's a quick splash in the pond of what you can do in Jira in order to facilitate those goals that you're trying to accomplish in governance. Again, remember, one of our key goals is grassroots motivation, and nothing is going to motivate that more than allowing people to create their own issues, allowing people to discuss and motivate their own issues in the governing process, and of course being able to see and view everything that's happening so they can see what's happening with their issues all along the way. Okay. If there's any questions on this, we'll have a question answer later on. Also, we've actually worked with customers and helped them build this. So if you guys want help building this, get in touch with us after the webinar and we'd be happy to help you with it. Now, what I want to transition to is from actions related to governance to content related to governance. You cannot have a successful governing structure without content. And of course, one of the greatest tools for content that exists is Confluence, right? So here is our Confluence space around governance. Now, I call this our Confluence space. We teach a Confluence bootcamp class. If you want to learn more about Confluence, take that class. One of the things we really drill into in the beginning of the class is governance around Confluence. And one of the key concepts we have there is your spaces are going to be macro spaces and micro spaces. Do not make a public macro space something that is a micro space. And governance is a macro space. You should have availability and people should be able to see the information in governance across everyone that is in the Atlassian ecosystem. You may have 2,000 users in the Atlassian ecosystem. All of them should be able to get access to this space so they can learn what's happening with your governing activities, learn what's happening with the Atlassian products and the how-to articles and best practices around that. But you can also make this a public space in your organization. So if you have 5,000 employees and only 2,000 are in Atlassian ecosystem, all 5,000 employees can actually learn from this. What if I want to become, what if I'm an employee or team that's in my company, in the rocket, right? And I can see my rocket going faster and further if my team started using Atlassian like some of the other teams are using. But I don't know anything about Atlassian. I don't even know how to ask or who I should ask to get involved in Atlassian. Perfect place right here in the governance. If this is open to everybody in your company, they can come into here and they can find out a section here that might tell them, how do I start using Atlassian tools as a team? What are some of the standardization? What's some of the training that's available? Do we do internal training sessions? When are those scheduled? Right? All of that could be available here for everyone to see. All right, so let's jump into this Confluence space. And I want to show you how you can use the Confluence space to support the framework and the governance structure and all of that as well. First of all, your homepage. Obviously, your homepage should be a place where people can see some very high level, quick information around governance. Things like your purpose, maybe some links, like right here, click here for some great articles on enterprise governance. Click here to view our latest YouTube governance videos, things like that. Space directory, giving them a quick reference to the index of the space, maybe some diagrams down here. Some of these you guys have seen already around the governance structures that we've done, stuff like that, right? Over here on your tree, you're going to have a couple of different main headers. We've broken the tree up into governance structure, policy and standards, how-to articles, and then maybe just a quick reference note around meeting logs. If you are implementing a governance strategy in your organization for the first time, you might want to have another high-level tree over here around your governance roadmap, right? How are we implementing governance? What are some of the actions that are around that? Roadmap that out and put that right here in your governance space as well. Let me talk a little bit about governance structure. Okay, so governance structure is going to be the people and the activities around governance. So for example, let me pull up this diagram right here. Okay, so this is, again, is an example. Use it if it's worthwhile. Come up with your own if you have a better one. This example is designed to be a governance structure for a company that is small enough that they don't need a hub and spoke governance system, but large enough that they need more than one governing body, right? So perhaps you might have a 3 governing body structure. At the top would be an Atlassian steering committee. This would be maybe 2 to 4 people that are instrumental to not only the Atlassian ecosystem, but also the purchasing that's necessary. So you're probably going to have a vice president or an executive in this group that can write a big check for when you want to purchase things. You probably also want to have like your Jira admin in here as well, and maybe a couple of other people. We are going to try, again, as our strategy, grassroots governance, we are going to try to push as much activity and decisions down, not up. So this Atlassian steering committee, we want to try to keep it small because we want these people to only be making a handful of decisions a year and really not having to meet a lot. Underneath that are going to be 2 groups, what I call the Atlassian system admin group and the Atlassian product admin group. And what this reflects is that when you're in the Atlassian ecosystem, there are really 2 very different activities happening. There are tools and products that you are using on a day-to-day basis, and there's a platform that those products are living on. And I think it's important from a governance standpoint to separate those 2 out because they are very different, right? So the governance system admin group, right? They're going to be dealing with things like Where does the software live? Are we on premise? Are we doing server? Are we doing data center? Or are we doing software as a service on cloud? If we're on premise, is it in our closet, or is it in the last, or is it like in a Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud? Okay, these are your system admin platform folks, right? So that's your system admin group. Also, they're going to be involved in things like security and compliance. If we're moving from server to cloud, who is reviewing the Atlassian terms of service, right, for their cloud platform? That should be over here in the governing body. There's absolutely no way that if you are considering moving to cloud, you should not have a governing body that is reviewing the Atlassian cloud terms of service with your compliance team. So that should be motivated from the team that is coming out of the Atlassian ecosystem. So user access, right? Who has the rights? How are we connecting this to the Active Directory? Things like that, okay? If you have an on-prem tool, connecting this to things like your email on-prem and other things that are happening behind your firewall. That's all the Atlassian system admin group. Over on the Atlassian product admin group, we're now talking about using the tool itself. So the big difference there is we're not talking about the platform, we're talking about what are we doing in the tool. For example, what workflows are standardized versus customized, right? That's completely within the parameters of Jira. That's the Atlassian product admin group. So things like the functional software elements, things like tool configuration, how do we configure certain things? Tool security, right? Not platform security, tool security. Difference being platform security is whether or not we are going to use AWS or cloud. Tool security is going to be how are our permission schemes built for each of our projects, and do we have a standard permission scheme that people should use by default, right? You see the difference there? Okay. User management, again, user access is the system side. User management is the product side. So these are very different. Also, the people that are involved in these groups are probably going to be different, right? Your Atlassian product administrative group is probably going to be a smaller number of people than the system admin group. Your system admin group for governance may include people like your email admin, your Active Directory admin, your platform admin, as well as many other people. When you have conversations and events around system admin governance, not all of those people may need to be part of that conversation, but you will probably need to plan ahead for those conversations because those people have a lot of other things that they're doing with a lot of other software tools. And so you're going to need to get their attention with enough time so they can help you. Over on the product admin side, most of the people in that governing group will probably be pretty consistent. These are your admins, right? Your Confluence admin, your Jira admin, your Bitbucket admin. These are people that are maybe some of your macro super users, maybe some of your team leads, your project managers, things like that, right? So those are going to be the people in the product admin group. They are probably going to be more consistent. When you have a product admin governance conversation, it's very likely that you'll have the same group of people having that conversation. Okay. Down at the bottom of this triangle is a little blue bar. It says project managers, product managers, development managers. This is really indicative of the fact that, again, we are pushing this down. We are liaisoning each of these groups down to the grassroots so that we can actually find out what's happening on the ground level. The key point here is twofold. One, motivation for activity, documentation, things like that should come from this blue box down at the bottom. And two, the personnel that actually live in the three triangles above the blue box also live in the blue box as well, except for maybe some of the executive people, right, on the top box, the top triangle. So that's a governance triangle that we use as an example. Again, come up with your own if that doesn't work. If you need help with this, let us know. But this is a great example of the governing structure. Going back to Confluence, I want to demonstrate how this governing structure is actually laid out for people so that they understand what's happening. Again, somebody wants to know, what is our governing structure? Oh, we have three bodies. What does the Atlassian Steering Committee do? Look, we got it right here. This is what the Atlassian Steering Committee does. This is the purpose. This is the structure. These are the members. Oh, look, we actually have an open position. And we have a governance Jira ticket to track that open position. And currently, John Smith is one of the nominated people, and it's currently in the voting status. So we have that kind of down here. We have meeting notes, things like that. So you can have these different links on your Confluence site. This is the one for the product admin group, purpose, structure, and again, we have the team there for the product admin group, et cetera, et cetera. Here's one for the system admin group. You might even have a link on this tree for decision logs. Maybe this is a list of things that have been are currently in process of being decided or something like that. Okay, that's your governing structure. That's one of those three key pillars. And it's really important that you spend a lot of time thinking about how you want to build that and then really making sure that's visible to everybody because you want people engaged and involved. The next one down is your policies and standards. This is going to be your high level overview of how you do things. Of course, the Atlassian products admin group is going to be the group that's going to manage this. Here are some examples. Here's like, for example, a diagram that XPM uses in our bootcamp classes around how to build a Jira project. This could be utilized as a standard protocol for building a Jira project. If your team wants to build a new project, you need to coordinate with the Jira admin. You need to start with this standard protocol. And maybe there's another document where people need to fill out to determine what all of these project elements will be. How many issue types do you need? What do you want your schemes to be named? Things like that, right? So that's a diagram. You might have a series of policies and standards for administrators. For example, here we have archiving projects, database elements, integration, things like that. You might also have a series of policies and standards for all users. For example, how do you manage workflows, statuses and resolution, policies for add-ons and things like that. And then you might also have a link for policies that are in progress right now. And this might be something that is connected to, again, your Jira activity. It's just a filter of the list of policies and activities that are happening over in Jira, but it's right here in Confluence where people can see it. All right, so that is going to be another one of your pillars, your policy and standards pillar. So that's really important to have that out there as well. You might also have a section around how-to articles as people do things, learn things, implement things, maybe put a requirement out there that they build a how-to article as well. So again, your three pillars are governance structure, which is your governing bodies, policies and standards, how-to articles, right? And then your governance framework, which is exactly what we're looking at here with Confluence and with Jira. So that pretty much wraps up the little show and tell that I wanted to do. But I wanted to demonstrate how the ground level implementation of the governance structure can really motivate the grassroots success of governance so that we are bringing to bear those things that we want to that will allow us to achieve those governance goals. Okay, so we are at about 11:47 right now. I think I have covered everything that I want to cover in this session. I'm going back to my slideshow now just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. Okay, so we're at the end. This is me, Steve Terrelmas. This is my email. Send me an email if you have any questions on this webinar. If you liked what you saw and you want to implement it, either on a strategic or a practical level or both, we can help you do that. We typically can implement something like this with about a week's worth of work with a company. We start off with some meetings, we build a framework, and we finish with some meetings. So reach out to us. This little QR code will show you how to access some of our upcoming webinars and classes, which are listed right here as well. Okay, so I am now going to end the official part of the webinar and open it up for questions. Do we have any questions out there around anything that we talked about today? Okay. Looks like we have one question around, okay, so how do we get started with something like this? I just got asked to be a Jira admin and our system is a mess and so how do we get started? Yeah, we get this question all the time in our classes. If you attend any one of our classes, you'll see that our classes are not just practical, click here, do this, they're very strategic. And so as soon as we get into strategy, a lot of times we get questions from students saying, hey, our system is a mess. How do we implement some kind of governance? A couple of things. First of all, you need to recognize the who, what, where of your Jira instance. And you need to capture that and be able to describe that to your executive level, right? The who, what I call the who, what, where. Who are the people that are in your Atlassian instance? Who are the admins? Do you have too many cooks in the kitchen? Do you have not enough, right? We like to say if you got 500 users, you probably only need a handful less of admins, right? So who are there? What is the products that you have out there? Do you have Jira? Do you have Confluence? Do you have Bitbucket? Do you have Access? What add-ons do you have? frame that all up in who is using each of those products, right? And then where do your products live? What platform do they live on? Do they live on server? Do they live on data center? Do they live on cloud? Is it a mix? Where are you going in the future? Are you trying to, so the who, what, where, build out a framework around that, and then start to try to capture the tools that we talked about here. If you have questions on that, need help with that, reach out to us. I will tell you there is going to be one hard thing you're going to have to do. You are going to have to get some kind of executive support for this, right? Anytime you are trying to scale something across an organization, whether it's governance or processes or anything, to do it by yourself as a Jira admin is going to be really hard to do. Sometimes the tools can drive best practices. However, it is usually best if you can build it while you have executive sponsorship, so that you can make sure that you're collaborating across the teams, and the teams have been somewhat motivated by management to start to implement this process as well. So hopefully that helps. Are there any other questions? Great. Well, I do hope this has been helpful. I tend to talk fast in my webinars because I always get excited and have a lot of things to talk about. So hopefully I didn't talk too fast for you. But this will be out on our YouTube site shortly. Many of our webinars wind up getting published on YouTube. So if you missed anything, want to go back and look at it, we have that out there. I'll definitely have this one out here because I love the fireplace. So I want to make sure that gets out on YouTube as well. So thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Again, we do this every week at 11 o'clock Central Time. Please come and join us next week and in the future as well. And if you have any questions at all, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of the needs you have, whether it's consulting, configuration, licensing, or anything. Other than that, have a great day, and we will see you out there in the Atlassian ecosystem.